The hero's failure picture. A hero. Every morning, they wake up before the alarm. They grit their teeth, clench their fists, and push themselves through the thing they hate the most. Running in the cold, eating tasteless food, sitting down to work when every cell in their body screams no. They call it discipline. They call it willpower. And for a while, it works. But then one day, the hero stops. Not because the task got harder, not because life got worse, they just stop. The rock they were pushing to the top of the hill rolls all the way back down. And in that moment of silence, they say something they've said 100 times before. I just don't have enough willpower. Here's the thing nobody tells you, that sentence is wrong. Not because you do have enough willpower, but because willpower was never supposed to carry that weight in the first place. Relying on willpower as your primary strategy is not a plan. It is a warning sign. Willpower is not how a system works. It is what you reach for when your system has already broken down. The willpower battery. Let's talk biology for a second. Inside your skull, just behind your forehead, sits a region called the prefrontal cortex. This is where your decisions are made. It is also where your self-control lives. And here is the critical detail. It runs on a limited energy supply. Every single decision you make costs something. Not money, not time, cognitive fuel. Should I check my phone? Battery drops 1%. Should I eat the cookie? Battery drops 2%. Should I start working now or in 5 minutes? Another few percent? Gone. By noon, you've already made hundreds of these small decisions. By evening, the battery is nearly dead. And that's exactly why you find yourself scrolling social media at 11 p.m., even though you swore you wouldn't. It's not a moral failure, it's arithmetic. This is what researchers call decision fatigue, and it explains why highly disciplined people still cave at the end of a long day. They didn't run out of character, they ran out of fuel. The dangerous myth is that the solution is more willpower. Train harder, want it more, be tougher. But that's like telling a car to drive further on an empty tank by really believing in the gasoline. The actual solution is to stop spending your battery on decisions that don't need to be decisions. The emergency brake. Here's an analogy that changed the way I think about this. Imagine a train, a long, powerful locomotive moving through mountains and valleys. Now imagine that train has an emergency brake, a red handle on the wall. Is that brake important? Absolutely. In a genuine emergency, that brake could save lives. But here's the question. Would you drive the train by constantly pulling and releasing the emergency brake? Of course not. That's not how you control a train. You control a train with the engine, the throttle, and most importantly, the rails. The rails are what guide the train forward without you having to think about every inch of movement. The train doesn't decide whether to turn left or right. The track has already decided for it. Willpower is the emergency brake. It exists for moments of genuine crisis, the unexpected obstacle, the sudden temptation you couldn't have planned for. But it was never designed to be your steering mechanism. What you actually need are rails, and the rails are your systems, the structures, routines, and environments you build around yourself so that the right action becomes the path of least resistance, not the result of a heroic daily struggle. Your environment is your rails. Your brain is not as rational as you think it is. It is constantly scanning the environment around you, picking up on signals and cues, and sending instructions before you've even consciously registered what's happening. This is not a flaw, it's efficiency. Your brain is trying to automate as much as possible so it can conserve energy for genuine novelty. But this means your environment is quietly shaping your behavior at every moment. If your phone is sitting on your desk, your brain sees it, and every few minutes it sends a little signal. Check it. You resist. Battery drops 1%, you resist again. Another percent. You lose this battle dozens of times a day without even realizing it, not because you're weak, but because you keep choosing to fight a battle you've already lost by the time you sat down. The systematic solution is not more resistance, it is removing the cue entirely. Put your phone in another room. Now your brain doesn't see it, there's no signal to resist, no decision to make, no battery drained. The temptation doesn't test your willpower because it never reaches you. This is the difference between a hero and an engineer. The hero walks past the cookie jar every day and says no through sheer force of will. The engineer moves the cookie jar to a high shelf in a different room and stops thinking about it entirely. Same outcome, completely different energy cost. Think about the spaces where you work, eat, sleep, and relax. What does your brain see? What signals is it receiving? What decisions is it being asked to make over and over again? Every phone removed from a desk, every distraction hidden from view, every healthy option placed at eye level. These are not small tweaks. These are architectural decisions. You are building your rails. The identity of an engineer. Most productivity advice is written for heroes. It glorifies suffering. It tells you to wake up earlier, push harder, want it more, and feel bad when you fail. But the most effective people in the world are not heroes. They are engineers. An engineer doesn't ask, "How do I force myself to do this?" An engineer asks, "How do I design a situation where this happens automatically?" There's a profound difference in those two questions. The first assumes that the human is the problem, that you need to be harder, stronger, more disciplined. The second assumes that the environment is the variable, and environments can be redesigned. When a factory wants to reduce errors, they don't give a motivational speech to the workers. They redesign the assembly line so the error becomes impossible. When a city wants people to exercise more, the most effective interventions aren't gym memberships and guilt. They're bike lanes and accessible parks that make movement the natural choice. The same principle applies to your daily life. You don't need to be a better person. You need to be a better architect of your own environment. Stop admiring people who succeed through willpower and start asking, what systems do they have that I can't see? The 3 rails to build worse. So where do you start? Here are 3 rails worth building immediately. Rail 1, reduce friction for good habits. Whatever behavior you want to do more of, make it easier to start. Put the book on your pillow, leave the gym shoes by the door. Open the document before you go to bed. The first 2 minutes of any habit are the hardest. Remove the obstacles that stand in those 2 minutes. Rail 2, increase friction for bad habits. Whatever behavior you want to do less of, add a step between you and it. Log out of social media so there's a login page in your way. Put your junk food on the highest shelf or don't buy it at all. Use an app blocker that requires a password. You're not stopping yourself with willpower. You're adding enough friction that the lazy default becomes not doing it. Rail 3, design your environment for focus. Your workspace should signal work. Your bedroom should signal rest. If these 2 things are the same, if you answer emails in bed or doom scroll at your desk, your brain gets confused. The cues blur, the signals conflict. Choose one place for focused work, make it consistent. Your brain will eventually start shifting into focus mode the moment you sit down there, simply because that's what that place has always meant. Closing, from hero to engineer. The next time you catch yourself saying, "I just don't have enough willpower," stop, reframe it. The problem is not that your willpower is weak. The problem is that you've been asking your willpower to do a job it was never designed for. You've been riding the train by yanking the emergency brake instead of building the rails. Stop trying to be the hero who suffers through it every day. Start being the engineer who builds a life where doing the right thing is simply the easiest thing. Ask yourself one question. What would I need to change about my environment so that this action happens without me forcing it? That question is the beginning of an entirely different relationship with yourself. One built not on guilt and grind, but on design and intention. Willpower is your last resort. A system is your plan. Build the rails. Let the train run.